Okay, we have the first question. Dear Ajahn, if a lay practitioner is trying to follow the 8 precepts, but for a period of time they are required to eat after midday due to medical reasons, is there any advantage to following the precepts of abstaining from dancing, entertainment, and abstaining from luxurious beds, seats? Is following 7 precepts better than following 5? Or should such a practitioner simply go back to 5 precepts until such time as they can follow all 8 precepts in their entirety?
Yeah, good question. Any precept is good news. So even if you're only following 1 precept, better than nothing. And I know some people who do that. Sometimes with the kids you say, oh, you can't stop telling lies. Okay, well, at least don't kill anything. You start there and you work upwards. So maybe you work up to the 5 precepts and then to the 8. But main thing is try and be clear on your precepts. So yes, if you're working, you get tired, you may need to eat in the evening. Or you say for medical reasons, you may need to eat after midday. So just be clear on what you're doing and why. So that cultivate mindfulness, clear comprehension. And if you're eating for medical reasons, fine, that's your choice. And you just have to accept maybe the limitations of your body in that situation. But don't kid yourself and say, oh, I keep the 8 precepts, but I eat a bit because of medical reasons. Just be clear and honest and say, well, I can't keep that precept in the way the Buddha taught, because the Buddha, he allowed what we call tonics. There's a few things we can have in the evening for this reason, mainly for medical reasons, to deal with hunger, illness, give us a bit of energy, to line the stomach if you need to take medication and so on. There are a few tonics. You can study this in the monastic discipline. You'll find these out, what they are, and you can use them in the keeping of the 8 precepts. But if you decide that's not good enough, or the doctor's insistent you have to eat a meal in the evening, whatever, well, fine, that's your choice. And just accept you can't keep that precept. But like you say, it's still good to practice any form of restraint, what we call nekama, so renunciation, restraint, composure. So if you're keeping other precepts, such as you sleep on a very simple, low bed, or you're celibate, or you don't engage in music, entertainments, don't wear perfume and makeup and jewelry and so on, well, great, that's good. That's all very wholesome action. And precepts are like that. You've got the basics, the basic structure, 5 precepts, 8 precepts, but actually you can divide precepts into sub-precepts if you want, because people make little rules for themselves that are necessary for you and your personality, your karma, that may help you, but they're not strictly speaking the 8 precepts, but they lie within them. The basic intention is, to develop restraint of body and speech, remove unwholesome activities from your life, so you can train your mind to abandon the unwholesome intention. So with food, say, well, okay, it's not evil to eat in the evening, but it can be the basis for greed and attachment, of course. It can make you sleepy, it can increase the hindrances. So it is something to consider with training the mind in deeper states of samadhi. But if you have to eat because you have a medical need, it's not an absolute block to nibbana. Like you say, you keep the 5 precepts, or maybe there's 6 or 7 precepts, and you just don't, you do eat in the evening, so that's okay. You can still develop Sila, Samadhi, Panya, the Noble Eightfold Path, doing that. And as I said, there's sub-precepts. So some people make a rule for themselves, they'll only eat 1 meal a day, say. Whereas keeping 8 precepts, you may eat 2 meals. You may eat a breakfast and an early lunch, say. But you may decide to divide your food into 2 or 3 groups of time periods, or just one. Or you might make a rule, like some people make a rule, I'm not going to gamble, because they say, oh, gambling's not in the precepts. But gambling, as we know, is a real waste of money. And it just makes you very unmindful, maybe experience many more extreme mind states. So something like gambling, you could make a rule, I'm not going to gamble, or I'm not going to do certain activities. Like some people, they keep precepts and they say, well, I'm not going to go to dinner parties, maybe, or certain functions, because even though I keep my precepts, it's not very pleasant to be around people who don't keep precepts, drink or party or do more unskillful things. So you're keeping your precepts, but you may decide not to go somewhere because of your precepts, even though that place, it's not that you would break your precept, it's just you would be in a place that's not conducive to the practice, maybe. So it's like that. You sometimes develop your own discipline coming from the precepts about where you go, how you spend your time. It's like how much you meditate in a day, how many hours or minutes. That's a precept, isn't it? If you say, I'm going to meditate for 10 minutes at a time or 1 hour at a time, that's a kind of precept. And again, if you decide you're going to sit for 1 hour meditation and you only do 30 minutes because you have a painful leg or you get distracted, okay, it's not absolutely evil that you didn't fulfill your 1 hour or your 10 minutes, whatever, but it's not good for the mind to do that often, because your mind becomes weaker, more used to giving in to desire, to distraction. In exactly the same way of any of those 8 precepts, if you give it up, there's a chance for other qualities, maybe more unwholesome, unskillful qualities, to slip into your behavior. So whether it's just, how long you're going to sit meditation for a session, or you could listen to a Dhamma talk and say, I'm going to make myself listen from the start to the finish, because nowadays everyone likes to listen for a little bit and then turn off and do something else. Well, sometimes you might make yourself read that chapter of the book or listen to the whole talk. And you can say that's a precept. It's really a simple rule, a training rule for yourself that you've developed because you need to increase your effort in some way. Same with sleeping. There's no absolute precept on sleeping in terms of hours. The encouragement is, well, don't sleep on a high and luxurious bed, because that encourages you to indulge in sleep. So you might sleep on a simple bed, but still, how many hours you sleep, you've got some flexibility there. So you might make a rule, I'm always going to sleep a certain number of hours, whatever you feel is right for your body. Or I'm always going to get up at a certain time. Or monks sometimes make a rule for themselves, I'm not going to go to sleep before a certain time. I'm just going to push through my sleepiness and sit and walk meditation until I reach the appointed time. Those are precepts as well. So there's a bit of room for developing additional precepts as well. Or in the case of food, well, maybe you have to remove one of your precepts because of your needs, medical needs, so you're on 7 precepts, and just be clear what you're doing and why.
Sadhu Lumpo, the next question. Why did Lumpo want to become a monk? What has Lumpo observed has changed over time after becoming a monk?
Do you want the short answer or the long answer? I think I have to give the short answer because this is a Q&A session. I can't let this question hog the whole session. So the short answer is, somehow I was drawn to the idea of the monk's life. First of all, I was reading about Buddhism, and I recognized that maybe the monk's life would be the most ideal, suited life for practicing what the Buddha taught. I was drawn, to the simplicity, the renunciation, the various qualities that a monk has to develop to live that life. That seemed very a good ideal, something that if I could do it, I didn't know if I could do it at the time because I was only a teenager, but I thought if I could do it, that would be very good. And then I was lucky, I saw Ajahn Chah on TV when I was 16 years old. So I was lucky, just by chance, I saw the program, The Mindful Way. It became for me at that moment, it was like, gave me a great confidence. There are monks living in the world like the time of the Buddha. Because before that I thought it's just an ancient religion that is a nice philosophy, but no one practices it anymore. But then I realized, no, they do. And I also saw that there were foreign monks living with Ajahn Chah, so I couldn't use that as an excuse, because I also thought that. I thought, well, I'm English, brought up in England, I'm never going to get to be a Buddhist monk, because I'd never met any and I didn't know any temples or places. But seeing that program kind of opened my eyes, gave me a bit more hope and faith that both the teachings are practiced in the world today, and there are monks too. I didn't rush off to Thailand at that time because I was 16, but it certainly planted a seed which didn't leave my mind, and then it made the other things I was doing, like I was reading some suttas, some teachings from the Buddha, I was starting to learn meditation. That had much more value when I realized there were monks. And then finally I met an ex-monk in England who had come back from Thailand and been a monk there temporarily, who was teaching meditation, and he encouraged me to go to Thailand to further my meditation because he saw that I was really into it. So I did. So there's a number of steps that led up to me being a monk, but the seed was planted from the age of 16, and it really gelled by the time I was about 18 or 19. I really wanted to try it, so then I looked for the opportunity. As far as the last 40 years since I've been a monk, things have changed. I'm a little wiser than I used to be. I understand the practice a bit better than I used to. I don't get as impatient, angry, worried, fearful than I used to. I have experienced less of that. I have a little less lust than I used to. So all the things we call mental defilements are a little less than they used to be, as far as I can see. But there's still more to do. I'm still practicing. But it seems to be going in the right direction. So that only gives me less doubt and more confidence in what the Buddha taught and the way of practice. Sadly, Ajahn Chah is no longer with us, but there are still many good teachers around that I can still visit and talk to, such as Luang Por Anan. And then now I've learned to teach myself. So that's one thing I've learned over the last 40 years, how to teach myself. When I began, I couldn't. I had to depend on the teachers and the training that I received from them. But over the years, I've learned how to use that for myself. Which is the greatest gift a human can get, really, from another human, is how to train yourself, how to practice for yourself.
Sadhu Luang Por. The next question. I found those who always want and ask for things from other people unpleasant to be with. What is Ajahns advice when we face such type of people? We want to feel appreciated and liked from those whom we like, but when I don't have enough confidence, what to do to increase this confidence level within myself?
Short answer is practice Dhamma, practice the teachings of the Buddha, and all these problems will disappear as you gain more clarity. People who always ask things from you are unpleasant to be with. Yeah, but they're good teachers, aren't they? They help us. They help us to see how stingy we still are, how attached we still are, even though it can be unpleasant. But then even the best teacher, sometimes they kind of poke you a little bit and make you do things you don't want to do, or give up more than you want to give up, give away more than you want to give away. So some aspects of Dhamma practice can be a little bit challenging, unpleasant, and you have to accept that. It's kind of short-term pain and suffering for long-term release and liberation. So if you can see that these people who are annoying because they keep asking you for things, even though they are annoying, they are also teaching you, perhaps. Help if you see them as a lesson to be learned from. Having said that, of course, some people ask too much, or ask for inappropriate things, or inappropriate times, or just totally insensitive. So then that's another side of it. There's the side that's your side for your learning, your practice, and then there's the side, well, what do you do with these people? How can you help them? So sometimes it is the right thing just to give them whatever they want, or help them in some way. Sometimes it's not, isn't it? Sometimes it's more helpful for them, for you to say no, so that they realize they're not always just going to get what they want from other people. They can't bully or bug other people to the point where they just get. That's maybe increasing their selfishness, which is not good for them, not good for you, not good for anyone. So that's the other side of it, is what do you do with them and how do you manage that? And that will depend on the people, who they are, because say it's your kid, say you're a parent, you have a child, well, of course, they will ask all the time. So the parent has to consider what's really useful and beneficial and helpful for the kid, and where sometimes they need to learn more patience. That's one thing. It could be a person who's like a close relative or a dependent, like a child. But then if it's a stranger, or someone in the workplace who really you have no need to give all the time, you're not indebted to them, they're not under your responsibility, but basically they're trying to take advantage of you, well, yes, sometimes you may give, sometimes, but other times you may say no, and you have to see what's appropriate, depending on the relationship and who that person is, what they're asking, what kind of help, and so on. As far as feeling appreciated and liked from those we like, you'll never get enough if you fall into that way of thinking, because unfortunately that way of thinking you will be mixed up with some craving and attachment to your self-identity. Your conceit, your self-view will take over, so you'll never get enough. You'll never be fully appreciated by anyone you love or don't love, or the world. There's no one in the world who will give you enough appreciation for your attachments to be satisfied. Because the nature of craving and attachment is never satisfied. It's like a voice that always wants more. You could say it's a form of greed. You're wanting your happiness, wanting to be happy based on what other people say. You want them to say nice things, do things for us, appreciate. Of course, it's a good thing much of the time, but this voice that wants more is never going to be satisfied until you realize that's not the source of your happiness. The source of your happiness is a peaceful mind, where you have mindfulness and insight, and you're not giving in to your craving. Then you actually may enjoy any appreciation and good things that come from others that you do get, but without craving it, wanting it, trying to get it. If it comes through causes and conditions, the causes are right, it's there, it comes, good. It's good for you, maybe it's good for them, because sometimes it's good for human beings to appreciate each other. It's a very wholesome quality much of the time. But if it doesn't come, you're not bothered. You can be happy whether you get appreciated or not. That's your goal, isn't it? To bring the mind to the highest goal in Buddhism is equanimity. Upekkha, equanimity towards conditions. So that includes praise and blame, appreciation, lack of appreciation. I know it's hard, and you learn lessons when people are not appreciating you, don't like you, take advantage of you. Well, yeah, you learn lessons and maybe you have to adjust your behavior. True. But that voice that wants appreciation, it's never going to be satisfied until you realize you don't have to follow it. It's going in the wrong direction. Be more self-contained, self-confident, like you say. So sometimes you can do it by asking yourself questions. Do I need other people to say nice things and appreciate me and run around after me to be happy? Or can I be happy totally alone? And meditation will be helpful here. Learning to be content, peaceful from your own practice, whether you're with others or not, whether you're appreciated or not. Then you'll get a lot more confidence. So, look at your own good qualities and beware of craving, because craving is never satisfied.
Sadhu Lumpo. Next question. I would like to start reading Sutta to strengthen my Saddha. Could Ajahn advise which Sutta I should start as a beginner?
Well, the nice thing is they're all good, but depends what you're looking for in the beginning and what your attention span is, your level of patience to read suttas is, because in the beginning, most people find it a little challenging. I did. So I made myself read the Majjhima Nikaya, the Buddha's middle-length sayings, because the suttas are not short, but they're not too long. They're all quite good. The text, the meaning is quite good and quite useful for practice as well if you're meditating. I would say the best thing is learn a simple meditation technique, even if you can only do it for short periods, and read suttas together. So learn to train your mind in meditation, mindfulness, learn to read suttas. So Majjhima Nikaya is a good place to start, but not to ignore the rest of the Tripitaka, because there's a lot of good stuff elsewhere. The numerical sayings, Anguttara Nikaya is quite good because there's a lot of short ones and they're kind of lists and little teachings that you can just read very quickly, but it stimulates. What does the Buddha mean there? What does this mean? One thing is you have to get used to the terminology, the phrases, the language of the Buddha. Even when it's translated, it's a certain way the Buddha spoke. So getting used to that. But the numerical sayings, Book of the Ones, Book of the Twos, are easy and they generally have something quite good meaning to convey. Another way, in Thailand, the monks often begin learning Pali and the Tripitaka just reading what we call the Dhammapada. The Dhammapada is one small section of the whole Tripitaka, the Pali canon, and just again, small, pithy, sort of meaningful sayings, and often, some books or websites, they'll give you some explanation and maybe a background story. You can say, well, the story is from the commentary, not the word of the Buddha, but often there's really good meaning and it makes it come alive for you, gives you some insight into that particular teaching. So many people find Dhammapada is a good thing to start with, just reading a little phrase from it, one of the little sayings, thinking about it, maybe reading the background story. That's another way into the Tripitaka. So it's up to you how much time you've got, where you are in your practice, how much experience you have with Buddhism already. But those are three areas I would recommend, particularly for meditation, Majjhima Nikaya, for short teachings, numerical teachings, the Anguttara Nikaya, and then the Dhammapada with some explanation or with the stories. Very good and quite enjoyable to start there.
Sadhu Lumpo. Are there any more questions? You can also raise a digital hand. I can invite you to unmute.
Everyone is quiet. Last chance. Okay, we'll end the session there tonight. So nice speaking to you. You probably are aware that we're on a new time zone, time in Eastern Australia, summertime now. So for those of you overseas, the time is now a bit different, 1 hour. We're 1 hour ahead. So if you were 2 hours different before, now it's 3 hours. Just to be aware of that. But it's in the posters, when we put the posters out, telling you when the next Zoom session is. So anyway, until we meet again, may the blessings of Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha guide and protect you.